Hi, welcome back to my channel. I have a few knit scrap fabrics, and what I don't have are tube tops. So let's make some. First, let's take some measurements. Two measurements. It will be the upper bust, so where you want the tube top to sit, and then the length, so how long you want it. For me, that would be about 32 inches for the upper bust, and I will make it about 11 inches long. To both those measurements, we will need to add seam allowances. For the upper bust, I will add half an inch on each side, which will bring me to 33 inches. Then I will reduce that 33 inches by 25% because I want to account for the stretch of the fabric and I want obviously the top to stay on. That would definitely be different depending on the type of fabric that you are using. If you are using a very stretch fabric, then you might need to decrease that even further. However, if we need to reduce that further, we can just increase the seam allowances to take it even more in. As this is more of a DIY, we can adjust along the way until we get the perfect fit. With this project, I want to experiment with the ways to make a tube top. I will be making it 3 ways. I will start with the light fabric simply because my serger already has light fabric thread. And for this one, I will be making it with a shelf bra. Then for this one, which is also a rib knit, but it is much sturdier than the other one, I will be just making a simple tube top, so folding it at the top and then hemming it, and that's it. And then I have the choice between these two. I think I will go for this one. This is a classic cotton jersey. I will be doubling it. Let's see from these 3 ways of making a tube top which one would be better, would sit better, feel better, and look better. I just folded here my fabric in half. So let's go over the measurement. I said personally my measurement was 32. I will add half an inch seam allowance on each side, so that brings me to 33, so plus 1 inch total. And then I said that I would reduce it by 25%, so I will multiply it by 0.75, which brings me to this measurement. Since I am cutting it on the fold twice, so 1 piece for the front and 1 piece for the back, I will divide it in 4. And that will be the measurement that I will need to cut. For the seam allowance of the hem, I think I will go either, depending on how much fabric I have, one inch extra or 2 inches extra if I can have a bigger hem on it. So I said I wanted about approximately 11 inches of length, so to that it will be either 12 inches or 13 depending on how much fabric I have. Here are my front and back pieces, which are identical cut. Earlier, when I talked about the seam allowances for the hem, I only talked about the hem, but we actually need some allowances at the top as well for when we will be attaching the shelf bra. For now, I have 12 inches in terms of length, so I think that should be sufficient. For the shelf bra, the width will obviously be the same as the front and the back that we have already cut. For the length, I would just take the measurement here. For me, it looks like it's around, I will go up to 6 inches in order to fold it and probably add an elastic to it. The key to working with knit fabric is to, one, use a jersey or a ballpoint needle, and second, to use a zigzag stitch, or some machine do come with kind of like a lightning bolt looking stitch, which is also can be used for knit fabric. The key with those stitches is that they maintain the stretch of your fabric, so your fabric can continue to be stretching without breaking the seam. Some people do like to just immediately serge their knit fabric. I personally always prefer to sew it first with the lightning bolt or the zigzag stitch, then serge it. I just feel that the seam is sturdier that way. I will start sewing my pieces together, the side seams first. I sewed the side seams of the front and the back piece and then of the shelf bra. I also ironed them open. I will leave the seam allowance open to reduce bulk in the side seams. And I also serged the seam, of course, for jersey or knit fabric. It doesn't fray, so you don't need to serge it, but I do it just to have a nice finish. I did try on the main piece and it does fit around my bust. However, it is quite sheer. So I don't know when I will add the shelf bra, since I want to finish it with an elastic, if the elastic will be too visible from the front. For now, I will just attach them both together, try it on, and see how it looks before adding any elastic to the shelf bra. After putting the main piece with the shelf bra, I have just ironed the seam, and now I will understitch it towards the shelf bra. This is how it's looking. The shelf bra, or the second layer, is pretty seamless right now, but just for the experiment, let's add an elastic and see how it looks. Also, another note, though it is sitting pretty well up top, I do think that I can tighten it a little bit. I will do it in the next one rather than this one, since I already understitched it. So yeah, let's add an elastic and see how it looks. While trying it on, I calculated how much seam allowance I have just under my bust, and it was 1.5 inches. So I will remove 1/2 inch and leave only 1 inch seam allowance that I will then fold over and put on a 1/4 inch elastic. Also, I calculated the measurement under my bust, which was 30 inches, and then we will use the same formula. So I will reduce it by 25 percentage to calculate how much elastic, or you can just fit the elastic under your bust to see the best, measurement for it. I will sew along the edge that I just folded, and I will leave an opening where I will insert the elastic. I have tried it on and it looks good, so I will go ahead and close the opening. Also, for the bottom, I have decided to just leave the hem cut this way. I think it looks pretty smooth, so it can be tacked in, and I will go with that option for this one. Working on the second version now, which will be the fully lined one or the double one. So I just cut 4 pieces of my fabric, so front, back, and then front, back. The only change I made in terms of measurement is that I added an extra inch to the length. So I cut it with 13 inches. I believe the first one I did 12 inches. For the next steps will be pretty much the same as what I have shown for the first one. So the 2 pieces are sewn together, 2 of them, 2 tube tops, and I have ironed the seam allowances open. I will not finish these since everything will be in close together. So now I will put them right sides together, and I will sew the top a 1/4 inch, and I will understitch it. I sewed what becomes my main and my lining together, so the right sides together, and then I understitched it. So now in order to finish it, I have personally chosen to do it through the hem rather than the side seams. I could have left an opening at the side seam and then just sewed it right sides together at the hem as well and got everything out from the side seam and the opening that we would have left, and just top stitch that opening on the side seam. But instead of doing that, since I will anyway be top stitching the hem, I have chosen to do it that way. However, before doing that, I wanted to show you, since now we flipped the lining, it's normal that it's kind of like became longer than our main piece, but we don't want that because otherwise that extra fabric will just be bunched up inside. So I will cut that extra length first, and then I might even cut it a little bit shorter, maybe an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch, so that it stays taut in a way, and inside the lining is tauter, and that we don't have like an extra fabric bunched up inside. And after that, after cutting it, then I will just sew it right sides together and leave an opening. Since they all look the same, when you have them out like this, you can just pin the lining just to know that this is your lining and this is your main, so that you don't cut any, well, the wrong one, mainly because we already understitch it here. So what I will do is that I will do it kind of like in pieces. So now I have them the right side. So this is my main, and this my lining is inside where I understitched. And then I will go to one side seam. Here I know that they need to be right sides together. So technically they need to be this way. So you can do it that way for this not to be confusing and to make sure that it is right. And then just take it like this. And then I will try to sew as far as I can. So I will sew about this way. And then I will repeat the same thing for the other side seams, and then we'll flip them. We might have a bigger opening, but that will be fine. We'll just iron it and top stitch it. I sewed how I showed you in both side seams. So this is how it's looking. So we have now two openings. We have this and we have this. I could have pushed it to sew even closer, but I think it's fine. Now I'll just go iron it. Just wanted to show you how it looks after ironing it. This fabric does roll down a lot, but once it's stitched down, we will not see the rolls anymore. For the twin needle, you only need to select a regular straight stitch. The twin needle itself, how it works, it will create a zigzag at the bottom, which will maintain the stretchiness of the fabric. We are leaving the simplest method to the end, which will be just a simple tube top. We will flip the top, and then I added a little bit twist to it, which I will explain right now. To explain how I cut this one, I just reduced by a 1/4 inch my measurement from the bust area. And then I thought it would be fun to have a split hem. So as I went for the waist, I just went back to within the 1/4 inch. So I cut this one at 6 inches, and then I continued 6/4, 6/4, 6/4, and then from here, as you can see, it goes a little bit out. I just started increasing it a little bit. Again, I'm just eyeing it. It's not perfect measurement. We'll see how it will look, but I just thought that it will be a nice detail to add to differentiate with the others. The other element is that I cut it 14 inches length long, and I snipped here about 4 inches from the hem where I will stop, and then this will be turned to create that split hem. Since this version is simple and will only be folded once at the top to create a hem, I will be adding an elastic to it. I will sew it before flipping it into the seam, simply to add some structure to it and not have it stretch out too much, which the rib knit usually doesn't do that much, but it'll be safe than sorry. You can definitely do this with a clear elastic, which I have done in the past to stabilize shoulder seams or even neck seams for knitwear, but I have also tried it with just a simple 1/4 inch elastic, and it worked out as well. Cut the measurement here without necessarily like stretching it too much, because again, I don't want it to bunch up. I just wanted to add some structure. So now we will follow the same steps as the others in terms of the side seam, and I will show you how I will attach the elastic to the top as well as sew the split hem. This is how it's looking so far. So for the elastic that I want to add, I will just zigzag it here. And then this way. And then I'll flip for the hem afterwards. We'll flip like this and then top stitch it. So again, the elastic will just be there so that it gives more support. Another idea that I had would have been to use interfacing, like knit interfacing as well, to just avoid that area from stretching too much with wear and tear, but I think an elastic will be best. I will just use the edge of the elastic to fold it. Ideally, I will measure to make sure that it is straight, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. For reference, the hem ends up about 1/2 inch folded. I will be using a twin needle to top stitch the top of the top as well as the hem. And a quick tip for when you don't have a second spool of thread of the same color that you are using, I would just use a bobbin that has that same color thread, and I will use it in lieu of the second spool, and then I will thread my machine with the twin needle as if this was a spool. I ironed the hem 1/2 inch, and so now I will top stitch it all around. Third and last loop top is done. This is the close-up of the top hem. And this is the bottom one. Here are the slits. And I look from the inside out. I have finished the 3 tube tops and I'm kind of happy with how the 3 of them turned out. I just find it so fun and liberating to sometimes just start a project with no pattern, no really idea of how it's going to look or where it's going. And even when it is simple, it just kind of like breaks that process of following instructions and going through a more complex pattern. So I hope that this was helpful for you as well to see, enjoy looking at me going through it, or if you would like to replicate it. And just a few final comments on the 3 of them, the 3 makes. So definitely for the rib knits versions, they are softer, but that's just the property of rib knit, and stretchier than the cotton knit one. This one is definitely harder to put on. It's, I guess, just because of the fabric, quite tight on, and then it's like doubled, so it's kind of like comes reduced to a certain extent its stretchiness. So yeah, the solution for that could have been just to, instead of reducing the upper bust measurement by 25%, reducing it maybe by 20% and see how will that look, or perhaps just frailing it, so like maintaining the 25% in the upper bust but then making it a little bit go out while going basically down the waist. But that also just makes it make sure that it's gonna stay put and it's not going anywhere, though it does makes it harder to put on and then remove. For this one, I really like the shelf bra. It's really kind of like just simple how this is how it looks from the inside, and a double layer, but it really just sits directly under my bust and is quite nice. But when I did put this one, now while putting this one, this is simple, I do think the elastic that was added under the seam is quite helpful. So perhaps the ideal version would be kind of like a mix of these two. So either you can add the shelf bra if you want, but then between it kind of like sandwich the extra elastic that we have added. And lastly, another thing obviously that I wanted to add is that this is a very simple structure. If you don't want to wear a tube top, or you rather always have a bra on rather than pasties or something else, or strapless bra, you can simply add on straps. So just like sew straps on and attach them where you would like, and then you will have kind of like more of a tank top, tube top situation where you can wear the bra. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments below which version you think looks best or is better in terms of construction. I can definitely comment back. We didn't have that many nice days lately, and see with wear and tear which version I would enjoy the most. So yeah, thank you for watching, for sticking around.